And now, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome back our Director of Sales, Lucy West.
It's been an amazing day. I know you've learned a lot, but the person I'd like to bring to the stage right now, he's one of the newest members to the Jeunesse family. I had the privilege to go to a few meetings, 3.5 solid weeks, and when you ride through taxis through Germany and you arrive in all these different countries, and I think we even went as far as Israel, Eilat, you really get to know someone. And you also get to see the reaction for all the distributors as they meet them and see the types of presentations. And I could tell after the first few meetings that you could tell that he came from a network marketing background. As a matter of fact, he's been one of the top developers in the real estate market. He's set records for many companies. He's had over 500,000 people in his downlines. He's consulted with many of the most important companies in the industry. But what was most important is that the distributors that heard him speak really felt that they were getting some information that they could take from that meeting and take it home and apply it immediately to their own businesses. And that was the most valuable thing that the company could bring to the people right now. So with that, he really makes me laugh. He's a great person. Please welcome to the stage, Jeff Carlisle.
Thanks, Liz. You didn't know that I used to be a distributor, did you? Yeah, Lucy touched on it. You know, when I got started in the industry, I was in the real estate industry. And I wasn't really looking for anything new because I was having a lot of success selling houses. At least I didn't tell people I was looking for anything new. I was on the outside. Everything looked great. New house, new cars, big smile, nice clothes. The lifestyle seemed to be really great. On the inside, though, I was trying to figure out a plan on how I could have both money and time. Because what I had found in working for other people, typically, you don't get the money and the time. You only get paid what the job's worth. When you work for yourself, a lot of times the business owns you. So I was in a situation where I was making a lot of money, but at the same time, I didn't have a life. I was working 7 days a week, 90 hours a week. When I heard about this industry back in March of 1996, the only reason I went to listen to it was because a friend of mine who was giving me a lot of real estate referrals asked me to go check it out. But once I understood the concept of residual income, I chose to get started. And as Lucy mentioned, what we were able to do with no network marketing experience was to develop a system that was duplicatable, that was extremely simple, that every single person could follow, whether they had experience or no experience. Whether they were going to work this part-time or 1 hour a week, it didn't matter. We developed a step-by-step cookie-cutter system. That system grew. My initial 6 people that I sponsored in the organization, that organization grew with that system to over 500,000 distributors today. So I'd like to share with you a couple of key points of this system. Is that okay with you? Okay, now, when you first get started, understand this. Can I have a slide, please? Oh, there we go. There is a process that you need to follow. This process is the same process that every single distributor must go through. This is called the enrollment process, okay? Each step is very, very important for a distributor to go through. Each step is extremely important for every single prospect to go through. The more steps you take your prospect through, the more success you will have in enrolling them in your business. The more steps they go through, the higher the probability is they will become a distributor in your business. You don't have to do all these steps, but the more you do, you increase your opportunity and your percentage. So, the step 1 is you pique interest. You raise the curiosity of the person to where they want to find out more about the business. Step 2, you introduce a third-party expert. to help you explain the business. Now, I know in China and different parts of Asia, the initial steps, you do not really use a third-party expert. It's more of a personal one-on-one. I believe in Latin America, it's very similar in that way. But in these steps, at some point, you can use a third party to help move people to action. We'll talk about that. Step 3, a presentation. A presentation could be a number of different types of presentations, but every time you do a presentation, you want to do what's called a quick start training. I will show you the quick start training that we use. It's very simple, and it closes people into the business. Step 4 is you want to launch your business. With a new representative, you want to help them launch their business and get started. Launching their business. Think about a rocket ship. It takes off with tons of motion and energy, and it goes forward, and it goes straight up. With every new person, you want to launch. You don't just want to get them started, you want to launch. The next step, step 5, the weekly trainings, presentations, webinars, calls. Very crucial. Training is the key to this business. If anybody wants to make money in this business, they must come to training. And you do not stop coming to training until you have reached your goals. You want to make $1,000 a month? Great. Go to every training possible, learn what to say, when to say, how to say it, until you reach your goal. You want to make $100,000 a month? Great. Every training, every presentation, every webinar. That's a critical step. Number 6, corporate events. How many of you are glad you came to this corporate event today? Corporate events are the key because they give you a belief that you cannot get if you don't come. They give you a belief that we cannot teach you. We can't give it to you. When you leave here today, your confidence and your belief level is going to be at an all-time high. And you'll be able to take that with you to carry you through. Critical step for every new prospect and or distributor on your team, corporate events. And lastly, step 7 is you repeat the system. Each distributor, it doesn't matter if you've been involved 1 week, 1 month, 1 year, you want to continue going through this system over and over again. You need to be a student always, and you need to be a teacher as quickly as possible. So you need to learn what to say, when to say, how to say it, which gives you the tools to be able to communicate the message that you need to give to build a team and to teach others to do the same thing. All the new people, the prospects that are coming through as new distributors, they need to repeat the system. So let's talk about this. Number 1, peak interest. The most important thing is when you approach somebody is to be with confidence. Now, what's great is you have the options now that we didn't have before. See, when you're approaching people on a one-to-one basis, understand this. 55% of all communication is body language. 55% is body language. 38% is the tone of your voice. And only 7% are the words that you say. So you literally, if you have confidence about what you're doing, if you have confidence about where you're going, you can say everything wrong and people will still be interested. How many of you noticed this? How many of you screwed up really bad like me, said everything wrong and people were really interested? So that's only because 7% is words. So you can say everything wrong and still get it right. So the most important key is when you're going out to talk to people is to be confident, and you just want to raise curiosity. You just want to get them curious to find out more. Understand, how many of you have ever been to a movie? I'm worried about this side of the room. No Facebook, no movies. They just build Jeunesse, that's what they do. So think about it. If you're going to tell a friend about a movie, right? You're not going to sit and tell them the entire plot of the movie. You're not going to tell them the ending before they go, or they're going to be upset with you. They have no reason to go. So when you're out to pique interest with somebody, your role is to simply raise curiosity, to get them interested and curious to want to know more, okay? That's the key of this thing. Now, conversations, one-on-one. If you're confident with your conversation, go talk to people. If you're not so confident, you could use tools. Obviously, email through the JBuilder system is a great tool that we can use to pique interest. Simply point, click, attach videos, write the text, change it how you want, hit send, and you've raised curiosity among people. Do you like that tool? J-Mobile. J-Mobile now has changed the way we build the business. It'll change your future. Think about this. All you have to do is send an SMS, and the videos will actually raise curiosity for you. They will get people to say, hey, what is this? What is this about? So again, whether you're doing it face-to-face, in person, or whether you're doing it using the tools that have been laid out, J-Mobile, J-Builder, J-Social, piquing interest. This side of the room, J-Social, yes? Just kidding. You want to raise curiosity. Don't give them the whole story before they hear it, okay? Number two, step two. Introducing an expert. Again, in Asia, this doesn't happen right away. In South America, I believe it doesn't happen right away as well. But what you'll find is that when you're able to introduce a third-party expert, people will move to action a lot faster and a lot more effectively. Let me ask you a question. How many of you have a friend that you know knows nothing about technology? How many of you have a friend that you know has no idea about technology? Like me, right? Would you possibly go to your friend who has no idea about technology and ask them to fix your computer? No way, because you know they just don't know that subject matter. You know you like them, you trust them, but you know that they're limited on what they know about technology. It's the same thing about this business. Your friends know you, they like you, they trust you. Even your team members that are distributors, after a while, they know you, they trust you. But sometimes you need someone else to help you move people to action. For example, how many of you have ever been in a relationship before? How many of you notice that in a relationship, the longer you go in a relationship, the less the other person listens? Have you guys noticed that? Or how many of you have noticed this one? This is classic with friends and family. You could tell something to one of your friends and family members that you're really excited about, and usually you'll get and then a total stranger could come say the exact same thing 2 days later, and your friend or family member is like, wow, that's incredible, you know? It's like they heard it for the first time. How many of you had this experience? See, the closer you are to people, the less they listen. So once you pique interest and raise curiosity, or once you present the concept of the business, a very effective tool to help move people to action is you bring in that third-party expert. You bring in someone other than you. What is an expert? An expert is a fancy word for stranger. All it means is someone other than you is going to help say the same thing that you're saying to validate it and move people to action. Now, you have upline experts, you have sideline experts. You know, it doesn't have to be somebody who's been in the business for a long time. You could have somebody who's new in the business who could be your expert to help validate what you're saying. See, between you and the people you know or your team members, there's trust. But they may not respect you to the level they need in this particular industry. So you bring in a third-party expert, you build their credibility by saying edification or giving them information about their history or their past, and then that person says the same thing you would say, and now you have someone who's listening. Step 3, a presentation. This could be a one-on-one. You meet somebody for coffee. You meet them at their home. You meet them at the office. It could be a 2-on-1 where you and your upline expert go to meet somebody to present the business, okay? Group meetings. How many of you attend a weekly meeting right now in your town? How many of you have a weekly meeting? Okay? So it could be a weekly meeting that 30, 40, 50 people get together, maybe 100. Very consistent presentations. Group meetings of any type. Could be a webinar, could be a Skype, could be Google Hangout, it could be anything. Okay? Private business reception. Private business reception is an in-home meeting. This is when you have a new distributor who invites 5, 10, 15 people, typically their easiest, to come to their home, where you come down and you do a short, brief overview presentation of the business. We built a huge, huge organization of private business receptions. See, the weekly meetings are the theater. They're the big show for everybody. But the business is built in between. It's the one-on-ones, the two-on-ones, the private business reception, the in-home meetings where you actually are doing the business. The atmosphere is more comfortable. People's guard is down. They're comfortable with their friends in their home or their office, and they're willing to listen a lot more. So all these are different types of presentations. But when you're doing a presentation, it's very, very important. There's 3 questions that you must answer. See, when you're doing a presentation, the person in the audience is sitting there and they're making unconscious decisions the whole time. When they first walk in, they want to know, who are these people? How many of you remember the first time you walked into a large meeting room? Right? You look around and you're like checking out the people, you're wondering who they are, where they come from. Unconsciously, you're figuring out, do you fit in? Do you belong? Are these people, successful, not successful? Who are they? So people already have their guard up. They're already thinking a lot about other things distracting them from the point of the business, because we all have walls up that we want to protect ourselves. But once you start a presentation, there's 3 questions that they're going to be thinking in their mind while you're talking. And with every single word you say, you need to answer these 3 questions. Number 1, is it simple? They will be asking themselves, is this simple? Is this something that makes sense? Is it simple? Okay, does it work? Question number 2, you have to answer the question, does this work? Well, let me ask you a question. Does Jeunesse work? Absolutely. Number 3, can I do it? They're going to ask themselves, can I do it? These are the 3 things. Is it simple? Does it work? Can I do it? So when you see me do a presentation, when you see a lot of the other diamonds do a presentation, you're going to constantly hear us say, this business is simple. Almost everybody can do it, and it works. Does that make sense to everybody? What's to say right here? Simplify, right? Is it simple? Yes. How many of you, if you saw the J Builder and you realize that all you have to do is point and click to be able to send out and prospect and track your business, how many of you think that's pretty simple? Okay, J Social, same thing. Point, click, and build your business. J Mobile, send an SMS, build your business. It's simple. You need to always be putting this thought into everybody's head when you're giving a presentation. It's so simple. It works, and you can do it. Does that make sense to everybody? Now, here's what we use for a quick start training. This may look really funny and really, really simple, but it's probably one of the most important pieces of training that I could ever give you to help you close your business and help you build a huge, huge group. How many of you have ever been to a grocery store before? 3 of you. That's encouraging. Well, all of us tend to know what apples are, right? So let's say you go to the grocery store. Now, I'm going to show you how we explain this quick start training, and then I'm going to tell you why it's so effective. You go to a grocery store. Let's say you're looking for apples, okay? In this business, you're going to come across 3 types of people. No matter what you say or do, no matter how good you are at training or explaining, no matter how confident you are, you will run across 3 types of people, and there's nothing you can do or say to change their reaction. They are already going to be one of these 3 types. Now, we're going to use apples as an example. The first type of person you're going to come across is what's called a red apple. A red apple is someone who says yes. How many of you have ever met a positive person in your life? One of you. You guys need to change your friends. When you meet a positive person, typically they're smiling, they're upbeat, they're happy. I mean, red apples. They could be red apples in any part of your life. Think about this. Red apples. You talk to them about the business model of Jeunesse. What do they say? Yeah, sounds good. You talk to them about the products and what the products are doing. What do they say? Yeah, sounds good. Same people. You could say, hey, do you want to go to this restaurant? They say, well, I just ate an hour ago, but hey, sounds good. Does that make sense? These are people that are open for new things, open to change, open to new experiences, open to new people. So you're looking for red apples. You are looking and focusing on people who say yes. Right now, this sounds good, we want to move. Makes sense to everybody? Second type person is what's called a green apple. A green apple, if you're looking for a red apple and you see a green apple, it's not quite ready yet. It's kind of in the middle. So when you come across a green apple, you will know it right away because they're going to be kind of hesitant and they're going to start asking questions. Now, it's okay if people ask questions. That's fine. What we want to do is we want to get them the information they need so that they can make a decision on if this is right for them or not. See, you don't want to try to convince people. If you find yourself trying to convince people, you are going to waste your time. The worst thing you could do is try to convince people, because if you convince them that it's good, then you're going to have to convince them to come to the meetings, you're going to have to try to convince them to talk to people, and it's not going to work. So you're only looking for people who say yes. So when you come across a green apple that's not quite there, simply get them to the website, get them the information they need, let them make their own decision. Now, some of these green apples are going to be what we call smart green apples. How many of you have ever met somebody who's a know-it-all? How many of you ever met somebody who thinks they're right about everything? Okay, when you come across one of these people, you're going to know it right away. A normal green apple is going to ask you questions that are relevant, that make sense, and that are, applicable to the business. But one of these super smart green apples will probably ask you questions just because they want to see if you know the answer or not. How many of you met someone like this? They actually want to show how much they know by showing how little you know. So when you come across a normal green apple, just get them the information they need, they'll make a decision. When you come across one of these super smart green apples who think they know everything, my advice, don't waste your time. How many of you have ever gotten a conversation with somebody who no matter what you say, you know they're right? And they'll go down fighting to the last day of death to prove that they're right. And they won't let it go until they prove they're right. How many of you met one of these people? Don't waste your time. The only thing these people are going to do is drain your energy. If you come across one of these super intelligent green apples that knows everything, then literally move on. What I always think is funny is you have some people who have no idea about this industry. They've never been in it. They've never come to a presentation about Jeunesse. They've never gone to a training, but all of a sudden they're an expert on all the reasons why this is no good. How many of you met these people? Okay, move on. Third type of person, rotten apple. Now, it doesn't mean that they're rotten people. Get that straight. So if you come across a rotten apple, don't tell them they're rotten people. That's not good. A rotten apple is simply somebody who says no. How many of you have ever met a negative person before? Fun, right? See, when you go out, no matter what you say or do, people are already going to be one of these three. When you come across a rotten apple, you will know it right away. You'll talk to them about the business. No. You talk to them about the product. No. You talk to them about going to a movie or a restaurant. No. I mean, rotten apples, I swear, I think you could try to offer them some cash and they'd still say no, right? How many of you met these people? Now, the thing you have to understand is some of you are going to come across rotten apples. Your distributors, your new team members will all come across rotten apples. How many of you have come across a rotten apple? Raise your hand. Everybody here, raise your hand if you came across a rotten apple. Now look around the room. Everybody will come across a rotten apple. It's completely normal because rotten apples exist everywhere. What I'm going to tell you is, I know you've probably experienced the same thing I experienced. I know your new distributors are going to experience the same thing I experienced. You're going to come across some rotten apples, and they're going to be disguised as your family, friends, and loved ones. Make sense? My own father was not only a rotten apple, he's a rotten apple. I mean, I can handle people who say no. We could all handle that, yes? If they say no, no problem, okay? If you come across a rotten apple, what I like to do is I like to say this. If they say no to the business, I like to say, hey, great, no problem. Listen, would you do me a favor? Would you actually help me out? Try the products. The products are incredible. You're going to get great results. Everybody's getting great results. And you're going to help support me in the business. So I appreciate the fact you're not interested in the business, but could you do me a favor personally, help support me in the business? You'll get the benefits. That's the first thing I do with the rotten apple. The second thing I do with the rotten apple, after I ask them to help me out and try the product, is I say this. Oh, by the way, hey, who do you know that maybe wants to make an extra $5,000 or $6,000 a month part-time? Now, if they have a brain, they're going to say me, right? They're going to say, hey, I do. What are you talking about? If they don't catch it, if they still don't see the vision of what's possible, when you ask them who they know that wants to make an extra $5,000 or $6,000 a month, literally, I've had rotten apples, I know some of you too, have had rotten apples that have started giving me names of people. I've had rotten apples who said, call Sue, Steve, Bill, Mike, and all the people they're giving me are red apples. So your rotten apples know people that are red apples. They just don't want to do the business. So you have to ask for a referral. Does that make sense to everybody? Now, what I just showed you is a quick start training, okay? Very simple. When you explain this to people, all of a sudden, several things happen. Number one, they understand that people are already predisposed. They're already going to be one of these three. The second thing that happens is you're preparing them mentally for the fact that there will be people who will say no. In fact, I always tell a story about my father, the rotten apple. How, everything I've ever done in my life, my father was trying to talk me out of. I wanted to move from Iowa to Los Angeles. He told me it would never work, that I'd come back to him within 2 weeks looking for a job. That was my support, right? I went to Los Angeles. I got a good job. I doubled my income within 2 years. I got a company car. I was 22 years old, and I was a sales manager for a company nationwide. You know what my father said? He spent 3 months trying to talk me out of it. After I got the job, he's like, son, I'm glad you listened to me. Thank you. Then I wanted to leave that job, go into real estate. He told me all the reasons why it wasn't going to work. Commission only, you're going to have to work so many hours. Why would you give up a good job? The market's not good. Now, here's my dad. He knows nothing about real estate. He lives halfway across the United States, and he's explaining to me why the market's not good. So, I went into real estate. I had success. I became one of the top agents. You know what my father said? Son, good job, good move. I'm proud of you. Thank you for listening. Right? How many of you experienced this? So when you're explaining the quick start training, you tell a couple of stories about the rotten apples you've come across in your own life. And what will happen is you're going to mentally prepare your new distributors for the rotten apples they're going to come across. And when you tell them that it's normal, when you tell them a couple stories, you give this example and you tell them stories about the rotten apples, what happens is they leave the presentation. They go out and they start talking to people. How many of you notice that right away, people, the first thing they do is they call their best friend about this business? How many of you notice that? Most of the time, the best friend is a rotten apple. I don't know why that is. It just is. They're your best friend. Of course they're supposed to be a rotten apple, right? So think about it. If you don't prepare them, if you don't show them this concept, when they go out and they talk to people and they come across a rotten apple, what are they going to think in their head? They're going to think, oh, this thing does not work. Maybe I don't know how to do it. Maybe it's not going to work for me. Maybe I don't know what to say. And all of a sudden, doubt will start creeping into their brain. And almost overnight, they're going to start thinking it will not work for them. Because when they leave the meeting, they're really excited. How many of you had someone leave the meeting super excited, and then the next day, all of a sudden, they quit the business? How many of you had this happen? You know why? Because they were not prepared mentally for what was going to happen. If you tell them a cute little story about red apple, green apple, rotten apple, you make it simple, you make it fun and funny, you tell a few stories about your own experience with green apples, red apples, rotten apples, that person is now mentally prepared, so when they go out and they come across the rotten apples, what's going to happen is they're going to come back and go, oh, haha, rotten apple. I remember I used to have people on my team come up to me and go, and I'm like, what's so funny? And they're laughing and laughing. They're like, oh my gosh, my wife is such a rotten apple, Or my dad is such a rotten apple. Or my sister was a rotten apple. And they're laughing about it. because we prepared them mentally. So you would rather have people prepared and laughing about it so they don't feel like there's rejection. Does that make sense to everybody? So every single time we do a presentation, we go through, and on the presentations, they're short. I mean, they're 35, 40, 45 minutes tops. Simple, concise concept. We always show this. Red apple, green apple, rotten apple takes 10 minutes. We do not let anybody leave the presentation unless they've seen this concept. Why? We need to prepare them mentally because you know what's going to happen. They're going to go out, they're going to say everything wrong, they're going to start talking to people, get overexcited, and the people are going to be rotten apples or green apples. Some will be red, and the person's going to make a self-evaluation on whether they can continue in the business. Now, J-Mobile, J-Builder, J-Social takes this away from people because it actually takes the conversation out, but still, even using the tools that we've put together for you, the people are still going to feel rejection if you don't explain this. Does this make sense to everybody? Okay, step 4, launch your business. The first 24 to 48 hours in every new distributor's business is the most important. The first 24 to 48 hours. When are they the most excited? The first 24 hours. Right when they leave that presentation, they're the most excited. When are they most likely to call people or to send a J-Social or send a J-Mobile? The first 24 hours, when they're the most excited, before they go out and before life gets in the way, before their job gets in the way, their family gets in the way, before the rotten apples have a chance to break their dream. Does that make sense to everybody? So, the first 48 hours, what you want them to do is you want them to identify their 10 best, their 10 easiest. And for the people who are serious, do a private business reception, a PBR. The 10 best, the 10 people that they think would be the most successful in this business, I always ask this question. Who do you know, to my new distributors, who do you know that makes way too much money, they don't need any financial money, they have no time, they're very, very busy and they have no extra time, but because of who they are, because of their credibility, they would be huge in this business. And usually what you'll do is you're going to see people will start giving you names. Now, just to give you an example, I was doing a training for the Emerald Experience in Hawaii in January. And I had a couple of diamonds in the front row of the training. And I started to ask them the question, who do you know that makes too much money, has no time, would never do this business, but if they did, because of their credibility, they would be huge in this business? And you know what's funny about that? One at a time, the diamonds started to give me names. And so I told one of the other diamonds to start writing it down. And as I continued to ask the question, the diamonds, a couple of them making over $100,000 a month, been in the business 2-3 years, were coming up with names of people that they never had thought of before. Because I asked the right question. See, with people, they're naturally going to go to the people that they're comfortable talking with. They're naturally going to go to the people that look up to them, that respect them, because it's comfortable and it's easy. And if the people say no, they're not going to feel so rejected and they're not going to feel like they look bad. But it's the people that are already successful, that are already motivated, that are already building their business, they like multiple streams of income, that already use their networks to get what they want. It's these people that could be the most influential in your business. Now, when I was doing this, I was somebody's best. They called me up, they thought I made too much money, they thought I had no time, which was all true. I had no time, but they called me anyway because they were taught not to prejudge. Don't just call the easiest, call the best. One phone call my sponsor made. My first meeting 2 days later, I saw the business. I went to a national event like you're here today. I came back, and within 2 days, I decided to have a private business reception at my home. I called 63 people. 62 showed up to my house. One got into a small car wreck on the way there because she was running late. 62 people I was able to put together in 48 hours. Now, don't prejudge. You want to give everybody the chance, whether they have money or not, whether they've had success in their life or not, but you also do not want to prejudge the most successful people. We have huge CEOs in this business. We have tons of doctors in this business because the products are so incredible. We've got attorneys. We've got all types of people in this business that you would think were too successful, but they see the vision for different reasons. They want to get involved. We had people worth several $100 million in my downline. They were doing it because they wanted a new challenge, or they liked the atmosphere, or they liked the products. Does that make sense to everybody? So the first 48 hours, 10 bests. If they're not comfortable talking to them, they have two choices. You could talk to those people with them, or they can use the tools now and send these out, JSocial, JMobile, to those best people. 10 easiest, the 10 people that will listen to them just because of them. How many of you know some people right now that if I asked you to introduce me at your home, if we were in your city, and I said, listen, put 5 people in front of me, how many of you could figure out 5 people to put in front of me in your home? I would close them, by the way. If you put them in front of me, believe me, I'd close them in the business. So, those are your easiest. Those are people you have influence over that you could bring in right away. Does that make sense? So 10 best, 10 easiest. What we have found is that if you go out and they talk to the 10 best and the 10 easiest, you'll have at least 2 distributors typically start and have at least 2 customers. 2 distributors and 2 customers in 2 days. You duplicate this over and over, fast. Does that make sense to everybody? That puts them in a position to earn money, and that's your goal. Step 4 is to put every new distributor in a position to earn money right away. You want them to be able to earn money their first week to help build their story and to help create the story of their success to validate for their contacts and their friends and family that the business works. You need to answer that question after they get started. Private business reception. I ask people this: do you want to go fast or do you want to go slow? If they say, I want to go fast, I say, put as many people in front of me in your house or your office or wherever you can in the next 24 to 48 hours. If they want to go slow or if they don't want to go at a fast pace, no problem. I'll go as fast as you want to go. Quietly, I want to run with the fast ones, but I'm smiling and saying, no problem. You want to go slower? I'll go slower with you. I'll go at your pace. But for the people who want to go fast, private business reception, 24 to 48 hours after they start, they have people in front of you. They're best, they're easiest, it doesn't matter. You're showing up, you're closing the people, you're getting off to a fast start. What happens when you do this? The new rep gets in a position to earn money. They earn the executive position, which gives them a belief and a confidence that now this thing works, and you cycle. You cycle, you make money, and now you're in a position to help start building your team with that new person. Does that make sense to everybody? Okay, also under step 4, the first 7 days. You want every new distributor to attend at least one presentation. A presentation could be a one-on-one, cup of coffee, in-home private business reception, could be a webinar. As soon as they join the business, you want to get them in the system and get them exposed to everything that's happening. So you want them to attend a presentation. You want them to attend as many trainings as possible right away that first week. The presentation is what gets people open to the opportunity. The training, the quick start training and the training closes them. Remember, is it simple? Does it work? Can I do it? The presentation shows them the concept that gets them excited. The training closes them in the business. Okay? The other thing we do in the first 7 days is we register people for the next corporate event, the next event that you know of, the next big event. Now, your big event could be 100 people because we're just starting these different countries. So if you don't have a huge corporate event in your town or in your country yet, don't worry, we're going to be coming. We're going to be building it with you. But at this moment, if you don't have one and your big event is 20 people, great. Have them come and commit to that 20 people. If you have a corporate event that's somewhere close to you in the world, think about it. Get them registered right then. When are they the most excited? The first 24 to 48 hours. When are they the most likely to make a commitment to come to a corporate event? The first 24 to 48 hours the first week. Does that make sense to everybody? How many of you are excited about this event? I mean, I'm pretty excited because think about it. We have people here from all over Latin America. I mean, you all had to come a long way, yes? I mean, you had to get visas. You had to do all kinds of things. Most of you didn't have to do that to come here. Some of you were able to just hop on a plane for an hour. The corporate event is the key to this whole thing. Getting them success right away, getting them to a corporate event. I guarantee you the people that came from different parts, from Thailand, from Singapore, from Latin America, we have some people from Europe, they're going to go back and you're going to watch their business explode because they made the commitment to get people on their team here. Remember, the faster you go, the faster your group goes. You heard, Samson say, work, 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 work. The one thing I did right in this industry is I outworked everyone on my team. I sponsored more people faster than anyone on my team. I recruited more people, I did more trainings, I did more presentations, more calls than anyone on my team. The faster you work, the more aggressive you are about building your team, the faster your team will be. Does that make sense to everybody? Okay, trainings, webinars. Attend every training possible. If you're committed to this business, no matter what the income level is again, you have to attend every training possible. The funny thing I always hear people say is, well, I've already been to a training. One training's not going to do it. Do you understand? I attend trainings all the time. I've been in this industry almost 20 years. I'm still learning. I still hear things that I can use. I still hear things that can apply. You need to attend trainings over and over and over and over again. You need to make that commitment. This is one of the most important things you'll ever do because your mind opens slowly. We start to let in information over a period of time. So what's going to happen is you're going to hear the same thing over and over and over again, and then one day, whether it's a month, 4 months, 6 months, a year later, it's going to click. And as soon as it clicks, it's going to cause your business to take off. I gave the example earlier. I've been saying the same thing about how to approach and peak interest to some of the leaders in Los Angeles over and over and over again for months, for 2 months now. One of these individuals I thought was listening to me, but wasn't listening to me. She wanted to try it her own way, like most of us. Finally, after 2 months of hearing it over and over, I even printed out a script and said, say this exactly. Still didn't say it. Finally, she said it exactly word for word the way I taught her to do it, and one of her top people was interested, was a red apple. Same thing in Asia has been happening. They're using the scripts, it's working. You need to come to the trainings consistently so that this information, even though you hear it 50 times, there's going to be a day where it clicks and your business takes off. You need to be a student always. You never stop learning. You never stop hearing different ways to explain or teach the business, but you need to be a teacher as fast as possible. If you don't know how to get up and do a training yet, you need to keep coming to the training. You want to learn how to teach this business, you want to learn how to explain it, come to the training. You want to have new reps join in your business, get them to the training. Does that make sense to everybody? Step 6, corporate events. We just touched on it. I have a rule. It's a must. There are certain things that you could do to be successful in this business. There are certain things that you should do to be successful in this business. But there's absolutely just one thing that you absolutely must do. It's not an option. If you're going to be successful in this industry, if you're going to be successful in this company, you must attend all corporate events possible. Every new distributor must attend a corporate event. I don't care how many people you have on your report, how many people show up on your team. You cannot count the number of members on your team by the number of distributors on your downline report. You count the number of people on your team that are at the corporate event. Does that make sense to everybody? Okay, so corporate events, step-by-step training. How many of you have a different vision today than you did before you came to this event of Jeunesse? Raise your hand if you have a different vision. How many of you could see that if you had another 10 people here, how that would affect your business? I took 13 people to my first corporate event back in 1996. That 13 people in just over a month turned into 300. Another month turned into 1,000. All by taking people to the corporate event. That changed your mindset. It takes people and it changes their thinking, which gives them that edge that they need to be successful. Step 7, repeat the system. Every new distributor every week needs to plug in as many times as they can to the system. Webinars, conference calls, watching you do meetings. You keep the distributor going. You have to stay plugged in to stay lit up, meaning you have to stay in the system, around the other people that are building their teams, in the trainings, in the presentations. You need to stay in it in order to continue. How many of you notice that sometimes life gets in the way? How many of you have ever tried to go to the gym? How many of you notice that when you go to the gym, you get very excited, you're all passionate and pumped up, you're ready to go? In my case, sometimes I may go once or twice or 3 times, and all of a sudden you get busy. Something happens in work, something happens with your relationship, and you miss a day going to the gym. How many of you have done this? This group doesn't even go to the gym. I'm curious what you do. So, how many of you notice that if you miss a day going to the gym and you try to go back, it's just hard. If you get off track and you're not consistently going to the gym, it's almost impossible to go back and get started again. How many of you notice this? Or with a diet or with anything. It takes 21 days to form a habit. In Jeunesse, you keep going as long as you can until you hit your goal. You must stay in the system every day, every week possible, and all your team needs to stay in the system. That will keep them going. That will keep the momentum and the motion going long enough for them to have success. Now, let's talk about my favorite subject, finding leaders. How many of you would like to find some leaders underneath you? That's it? Hey, listen, I'll be the first to tell you, I know that this is a lot of information. I know that this is a lot of announcements, a lot of training. It's like information overload. But you know what? The things that you're hearing right now are going to be the things that are going to carry you the rest of the way through your career. What the diamonds were talking about today and their training and the conversation we had, what I'm teaching you right now, even if you can't remember everything, it's going in your brain. So don't worry, it's all good. Make sense? So, finding leaders. Every distributor must follow the system and stay plugged in on a weekly basis. You have to become the very thing you want to attract. You have to first be the type of leader that you want to attract. You cannot find leaders if you're not acting like one. You cannot find leaders if you're not plugged into the system, if you're not learning how to do a presentation, if you're not learning how to do a training. You won't be able to find them. Now, for those of you who are not confident enough, that don't necessarily think you could be in front of the room, it's okay. You still need to come to the presentations, the trainings. You still need to learn the language so that you can go out and find people who want to be in front of the room. Does that make sense? Okay, so your role is to keep bringing as many people on your team to attend as many of these steps in the enrollment process. So you're like a promoter. Every single week, you're talking to your team members about the next meeting, about the next webinar, about the next thing you're doing. You want to push and keep them plugged into the system as much as possible. So you're constantly prospecting, you're constantly helping your team prospect, and you're constantly pushing your team to be in the system as much as possible. That's how you keep them going long enough. Number 2, your role is to identify leaders, which we're going to talk about. Number 3 is to work with your upline to train the leaders, and I'm going to explain that in a minute. By the way, I'm going to end up having these translated into your languages after the event, so you'll have these slides. Is that okay? So, let's talk about it. This really is the key to the business. What is a leader? A leader has high energy. A leader is simply a high-energy person, excited, passionate about life, wants to go out and make something happen in their life. I don't care what your background is. I don't care what circumstances you came from. A lot of us, like myself, came from very humble beginnings, came from not such great circumstances in the family life. A lot of us had to overcome adversity. I know if you talk to a lot of the diamonds, they've all had to overcome adversity. I mean, I know the group in Chile had to wait for the products to arrive, but they kept going, they kept pushing, and now look where you are, right? So, high energy, self-motivated. A leader is self-motivated. They have a natural drive that wants to push forward and create something new in their life. You don't have to tell them to get out of bed to go. They're up and going. You don't have to tell them to keep doing calls. They're doing them. You don't have to tell them to show up to the meeting. They're at the meetings, okay? Strong work ethic. A leader will consistently do things. They'll consistently do three-way calls. They'll consistently come to meetings, presentations. They'll do whatever they have to do, whatever they can do at all times. The strong work ethic is one of the most important things you could find. I have a leader that I had mentored in my organization named Jeff. Now, Jeff didn't have any talent. Jeff was very shy. He was extremely nervous. He used to come to my house twice a week just to practice the presentation. So he'd stand in front of me. He'd come over about midnight, 12 o'clock at night, after we got done building. He'd stand in front of me and try to do the presentation. And I'd say, okay, put your hands down. No, don't say this. Say that. No, don't make that face. You know, I was like telling him how to do the presentation. Jeff did not have talent, but Jeff was motivated and he had a work ethic. So he kept going. He kept going, he kept improving, kept practicing, kept improving, kept talking, kept improving, kept coming over, eating all the food in my refrigerator, doing presentations, right? He did this for years. Today, Jeff makes over $200,000 a month. Absolutely. A leader, somebody good with people, somebody that has good charisma, natural characteristics that are good with people. Now again, if you're not this person, you want to find these people. So this is what you're looking for. A leader has a positive attitude. See, a leader, no matter what happens, they're going to be positive about it. It doesn't matter what goes wrong, they're going to keep moving forward. There are 1 million reasons why you could find not to do Jeunesse. Every day you could have a brand new reason why not to do Jeunesse. You don't need any more than one reason. Find one reason. Find one reason deep inside of you that you must make this work for you and your family. Find the one reason and you will have success. It will take care of everything else. That one reason will keep you positive and keep you going long enough to reach your goals. Belief in themselves. Leaders believe in themselves. Now, Samson hit on it. You may not believe in yourself in this business at first. You may not have that confidence in that belief. But the people on your team are going to believe in you and support you long enough until your confidence builds and you build your belief. Does that make sense? The actions of a leader. You're going to notice a leader when they come to your group. Right away, they're going to influence other people. They're going to be able to sponsor people very, very easily. They'll just be able to sponsor people. They won't even need your help sometimes. They have influence. They're able to influence other people for whatever it is about them. Okay? They're going to attend all the weekly meetings, the webinars, the trainings. They're just going to start doing it. You're not going to have to call these people and say, hey, come to the training. They're going to be the first one there. I remember when I got started, we didn't have a meeting. So guess what? I started a meeting. I bought stereo equipment. We rented the room. We set up the chairs. We made sure everything was set with a registration. We did everything that we had to do. No one told us to do that. Most of you, no one told you to get things going in your country. You just did it. That's what a leader does, okay? A leader wants to learn, always, how to present, how to train. And I don't care if you're already a diamond in Jeunesse. The true leaders always want to be a student. The true leaders always want to learn more, improve who they are, improve their game with the personalities, their presentations, everything. The other thing is, a true leader will just start to build their group without you. You're going to see their group start to grow and you didn't do anything. How many of you would be okay if you had 3 or 4 crazy workaholics going nuts 24 hours a day underneath you building a group and you didn't do anything? How many of you would be okay with that? That's what you're looking for, okay? That's what a leader is. Now, being a leader, the choice is yours. You don't have to be all the things that we're talking about. The goal is for you to talk to enough people, to use J-Mobile, to send enough campaigns, SMS campaigns, to use J-Social, to send enough videos out, to talk about the products, to expose as many people as possible until these people show up in your team. Does that make sense to everybody? You don't have to be this person to be able to find these people. So you could use your upline to help support you in finding these people. Or, for those of you who really want to, the choice is yours. You can actually be the leader. You can learn how to be the expert. You can learn how to do a presentation. You can learn how to do a quick start training, how to get a new representative started, how to be an expert and have someone edify you, how to do the trainings, how to promote events, how to close people, how to handle problems that may arise. If you want to build a giant organization, these are the tools that you're going to need. The best way to learn how to do this is to find somebody who knows what they're doing, tape record them, videotape them, watch and listen to it over and over and over again until you own it, until you could say everything the same way. You know what we did? We scripted everything. Everything from piquing interest to edification, to inviting to a meeting, to inviting to a PBR, to closing people, the quick start training, it was all in a script. We're going to do the same thing with Jeunesse. It's going to be word for word, where all you have to do is memorize to say this and just go say the exact same thing. We're going to put this all down. So for those of you who want to step up and really be the leader, be the person that's leading your group, these are the things you need to learn. You need to learn how to be an expert. Now, in teaching people how to become an expert, you can teach anybody from day one. There's no real requirement. However, for me, I would start to focus on people that have already reached the position of pearl or above. I want to focus on people who already show me that they can sponsor people by themselves or easily. You want to focus on people that have actually done something. The big mistake that a lot of people make, that I made when I first got started in the industry, is I was trying to train every single person in my group one-on-one. I was spending hours one-on-one trying to teach everybody how to do the presentation, trying to teach everybody how to do the training, trying to teach everyone how to be the expert. And what I found was I was trying to teach people who were not motivated to do everything. Now, why would I try to teach people who were not motivated? It makes no sense. So for me, I'll teach everybody how to do the presentation that wants to learn. I'll do meetings every week or webinars every week. They can learn how to do a presentation. They can learn how to do trainings. But for my personal time, my time where I'm going to mentor somebody, where I'm going to really focus on them, on what they say, how they say, and really put all my attention on them, I want them to be pearl or above to get my time. They have to show that they're serious. They have to show that they deserve my time. Does that make sense? The fastest way to find out who to teach is you look for the people that are building the business without you. You look for the people that don't seem to need you, the people that are just doing it. That's who you want to teach. Now, the key is you must keep working deep in your organization long enough past everybody until you find your leader. Now, what does that mean? That means I sponsor somebody in the business. I do not assume that they're going to be a leader. I do not assume that they're going to be somebody who's going to go all the way. I must assume that they're going to stop doing the business at some point. So, the only way that I can help people, how many of you like helping people? I do too. It's really fulfilling. It's one of the best things about Jeunesse. It's all based on helping people. But the only way you could help people is go find really successful people underneath them. Does that make sense to everybody? So don't wait. How many of you have ever heard this? Never fall in love with someone's potential. You would not marry somebody based on their potential, would you? No, don't do it. You don't fall in love with someone's potential. You only look at activities and results. So, I sponsor somebody in the business. 10 best, 10 easiest. Private business reception the first 48 hours. What do? I take that person, I meet their friends, their contacts. What do? I'm doing the presentation. 10 best, 10 easiest, 48 hours. Red apple, green apple, rotten apple. Meet their people. 10 best, 10 easiest, first 48 hours. Red apple, green apple, rotten apple. Meet them. Next, on and on and on. I'm building down into my group. I'm looking for leaders. Now, what happens is, at some point, you're going to look back over your shoulder and you're going to see somebody that just went pearl or just went sapphire. While you're helping build down their group, they're showing you and they're building their group. Does that make sense to everybody? What you do is once you find that person, you give them the opportunity to learn everything about how to be an expert. Now, when you're teaching somebody, this is a formula that you use to teach people anything, whether it's a presentation, training, how to be an expert on a three-way call, how to close people, how to handle problems. Use this formula. Step one, you tell people. You tell them what you're going to do. For example, I'm going to do a presentation. It's going to be 7 different parts. It's going to be the introduction. I'm going to talk about the company. I'm going to talk about the industry. I'm going to talk about the products. I'm going to talk about the compensation plan. I'm going to talk about training, and I'm going to talk about closing. This is what I'm going to do. So you tell them what you're going to do. Then you show them 5 to 10 times. So I bring people with me to everything I do, whether it's a one-on-one, two-on-one, and I show them 5 to 10 times. They'll see me do the presentation over, and then I tell them what I'm going to do, and then they see me do it again. And I tell them what I'm going to do, and they see me do it again. And I tell them what I'm going to do, and they see me do it again 5 to 10 times. So they're hearing what you're going to do, and now they're seeing what you're going to do. Okay? Then what you do is you allow them, after 5 to 10 times, you allow them to do part of it. So let's say you're doing a presentation. Maybe after 5 to 10 times, if they feel confident enough, you allow them to do the first part. They talk about the industry, they talk about the company, you talk about the products, the comp plan, and so on. And you keep doing this. You let them do a little piece of it, you watch them, you correct them, you make sure that they are on track. Anything they miss, you say, you fix. You go back, you tell them again, you show them again, they do the next part. You manage the results. You watch them, you correct them, you fix anything that needs to be fixed, you tell them, you show them, you do it again. Does that make sense to everybody? This is how you duplicate. This is how you get people duplicated. They need to watch you do it over and over and again until they build their confidence. Does that make sense to everybody? Now, with this, every piece of this, being an expert, is what you need to do. This doesn't happen overnight. This happens over time. They learn to do the presentations, the trainings, how to get a new distributor started, how to be an expert, promoting events, how to close people, handle problems. Everything you're doing on a daily basis as a leader, the up-and-coming leaders that want to take on that role, they're watching you, you're telling them, you're showing them, you're letting them do part of it until they get comfortable, confident, and pretty soon, first they do the first half, then they do the second half. You're doing this back and forth over and over and over. Eventually, they're doing the whole thing and you're watching. I used to go to meetings in like a Starbucks for coffee. I would have one person that I was prospecting. I'd show up, one guest, and I'd have 7 potential leaders sitting behind me, recording everything. Because every time you're building the business is an opportunity to teach your leaders, to teach your up-and-coming leaders. Now, what happened was, I'm doing the presentation, and there's 7 people sitting there recording. What's the prospect thinking? Oh, this must be important. People are recording it, right? But what you're doing is you're training. People used to come to my house on my team. They'd listen to me do phone calls. They'd listen to me, do presentations. They listen to me doing trainings. They're watching me. They were always watching, learning, listening. I was telling, showing, watching. Does that make sense to everybody? You need to do this with every single person on your team. Now, what we're talking about is anchoring a leg. When you anchor a leg, basically what you do is you identify leaders underneath your people. Does that make sense to everybody? You're identifying leaders underneath your people, and then you're helping identify, teach, train, show until they get independent. Once you get a leader independent in one of your legs, you continue to help that leader identify 2 more leaders. Does that make sense to everybody? That's called anchoring a leg. That's when you anchor a leg down. So you keep building, building, building. You find a leader, you tell them, you show them, they watch, you repeat the process over and over and over. Pretty soon, that leader is independent. But you never let them go. You keep watching that leader And now that leader is looking for leaders with your support. That leader is telling people, showing people, watching. Does that make sense? And you continue to do this until you have at least 2 other leaders underneath that anchors that leg. At that point, you're going to have 2 to 3 leaders under your leg. That leg is going nowhere. It's going to be long-term, huge growth, geometric growth, and building. Does that make sense to everybody? Now, real quick, I just want to touch base. Tomorrow morning, we're going to do breakout sessions in these rooms. We're going to have a Spanish breakout session from 9 to 12. We're going to have a Chinese Mandarin session, and we're going to have an English session. We're going to go through various things in detail. We're going to go through the J Builder, the J Social, the J Mobile in a lot more detail and a lot more question and answer so that by the time you leave, you will not have any questions. You will know exactly what you need to do to be able to use the tools that have been provided. We're going to go through and do some leadership trainings. I know there's some tremendous leadership trainings for Spanish that are going to be set tomorrow. So from 9 to 12, there's going to be 3 breakout sessions in different languages. So if you want to attend the English, or you want to attend the Chinese, the Mandarin, or the Spanish, it's going to be available. Does that make sense to everybody? So here's the deal. Real quick. This business is very, very simple. You have to be motivated. You have to stay in the system. You have to stay plugged in with a vision. Your vision needs to be 10 times larger than your group. You need to see possibility 10 times bigger than the strongest person on your team. I know Sergio had huge vision. His leaders had huge vision. They kept going way before they had any reason to see that Jeunesse was coming. They actually brought Jeunesse to Chile because they believed so strongly in the possibility they created it to happen. Does that make sense? And I know that every single one of you are doing the same things. Jeunesse is in its infancy. Most people won't even start hearing about this for a few years. You have a window of opportunity right now. You have a window of opportunity you will never have again. With these new tools, with everything that Jeunesse is launching, you'll never be in a position where you are in a meeting this small for a corporate event. Does that make sense? There's going to be meetings in each of your countries, 10, 20, 30,000 people in stadiums in each of your countries. You have a chance right now. You will never, ever have this chance again. If you get focused, if you can focus and talk to people and look for red apples, don't waste time with green apples, don't waste time with rotten apples, focus on the red apples, focus on finding leaders. Stay consistent, stay plugged in, stay motivated, keep pushing every day, every week. Don't stop. You go for it. How many of you can go for it? Let me ask you a question. If you knew for a fact that you could be making $100,000 a month in this business, how many of you would go for it? How many of you would do what it takes? How many of you would go to weekly meetings every time? How many of you would go to the presentations every single time? How many of you would look for those red apples? Let me ask you a question. If it was going to give you what you wanted in your life, would you do it? Could you do it? Could you go for it? Could you focus for the next 30, 60 days like you've never focused in your life and go for it? Could you do it? Will you do it? All right, then let's do it, all right?